In a recent live broadcast, Kuenssberg confronted Keir Starmer with pointed questions that put him on the defensive. The exchange highlighted key issues and showcased her interviewing style, leaving viewers divided on the impact of the discussion. As tensions rose, many felt Starmer struggled to maintain composure, making it a memorable moment in political coverage.
Talking though about people feeling great discontent with the state of this country, many of our viewers will have been appalled not just by seeing the publication of the report into the Grenfell fire this week, but also very distressed that years later there are still people living in unsafe buildings, many of whom might be watching this morning. Can you tell people who cannot right now sleep easy in their beds when they will have their homes made safe?
Kuenssberg's direct approach not only showcased her skills as a journalist, but also put Starmer in a difficult position, prompting viewers to question his leadership and the Labour Party's direction. The exchange has since sparked widespread discussion, with many calling it a defining moment in their political discourse. In a recent live interview, Kuenssberg confronted Keir Starmer with pointed questions that highlighted inconsistencies in his party's policies. As she pressed him on key issues, Starmer appeared visibly flustered, struggling to provide satisfactory answers.
Keir Starmer sat with us last weekend and he said, I'm going to do the difficult things now. And he stood then on Thursday and said of the Darcy review, I'm going to be bold about the NHS and we have to reform it or it's going to die. And then almost in the next breath, he said, but social care, we're going to kind of look at that. And in the next, I don't know, maybe even 10 years, we'll look at that. Tons of politicians and officials who've said to me over the years, you just cannot fix the NHS's core problem if you don't fix social care. The Darcy report said that 13% of people are in hospital because there isn't social care.
Kuenssberg's direct approach not only showcased her skills as a journalist, but also put Starmer in a difficult position, prompting viewers to question his leadership and the Labour Party's direction. The exchange has since sparked widespread discussion, with many calling it a defining moment in their political discourse. The cost of living crisis and climate change forced him to confront criticisms that his party lacked a clear vision.
First, I accept it's my duty of this government and everybody in a position of responsibility to make sure they are safe in their home. We will accelerate the programme. I'm frustrated that it's going as slowly as it is to deal with the cladding. A lot of that is to find sort of true responsibility and to hold people to account for getting on with the job. The money is there. The intention is there. We need to move more quickly on it.
So by when will people who are watching this, who are living in blocks that are unsafe?
Starmer attempted to outline his priorities, but Kuenssberg quickly interjected with counter-arguments, emphasizing public skepticism and the need for actionable solutions. The back and forth grew increasingly heated, with both participants raising their voices, underscoring the high stakes of the moment. Viewers were left with a stark impression of Starmer's struggle to effectively communicate his message, while Kuenssberg's unwavering stance highlighted the pressing need for accountability in political leadership.
So hospitals are chock-a-block. They're clogged up with people who can't get the care they need in the community. And that's a massive drain on the health service. So it was interesting that Keir Starmer was willing to sort of go there on winter fuel allowance, say that unsayable, get rid of that for millions of pensioners, but not be ready to come forward with a plan of social care, which we should also say Labour did say until very recently that they were going to go ahead with the cap on costs.
The exchange concluded with an air of uncertainty, prompting discussions about whether Starmer could maintain his position amidst growing pressures. In the aftermath, political analysts weighed in, suggesting that this moment could be a turning point for both Starmer and the Labour Party. Many are now questioning whether he can rally support and present a compelling alternative to the current government. The episode not only tested Starmer's leadership, but also reinforced Kuenssberg's reputation as a formidable political interviewer.
Will they be able to sleep easy in their beds without the fear of a cladding fire?
We're speeding up the process. I want to get this done as quickly as possible. Each block will be on a different timetable. I'm not able to give you an end date, but I can tell you I meant what I said. When I responded to the report, I said this has to be a turning point. It does, and we need to speed that up and get on with it as quickly as possible.
Forgive me, Prime Minister, during the election campaign, you made great play of how ready you were.
Following the interview, the media buzzed with commentary and analysis. Pundits dissected every moment, noting how Kuenssberg's incisive questioning left Starmer on the back foot, highlighting his difficulty in articulating a coherent vision for Labour. Some commentators suggested that this exchange could signal deeper issues within the party, raising concerns about its ability to connect with key voter demographics. Social media was flooded with clips from the interview as viewers shared their reactions. Supporters of Kuenssberg praised her for holding Starmer accountable, while critics of Starmer expressed their frustration at his lack of clarity and decisiveness.
Well, this is the government's problem. They, as good as broke our public services. They've created a situation in which wages have been stagnant for many years.
But what would you do differently
and they
in
need
that
to
situation?
They need to sort out this mess.
How?
I would do this differently by growing the economy. We have to grow
and you've said
our
that
economy.
already, that it's exactly the kind of problem that might face you, a pay dispute with a big, powerful union. What would you do?
We would be round the table negotiating and we would settle this dispute. I think many people would say.
Memes and quotes from the interview quickly went viral, reflecting the public's engagement with the tense moment. In the days that followed, Labour faced increasing pressure from within its ranks. Some party members called for a reassessment of their strategy and messaging, arguing that the party needed to regain momentum ahead of the next election. Others voiced concerns that Starmer's leadership style might not resonate with the electorate.
How much preparation you had done, how much you were going to walk in this building and get things done. And then today, you can't give us a date, a deadline, which is what people want to know. When will they be able to sleep easy in their beds? It is years since the Grenfell fire. It is years that you had in opposition. Everybody knew this was coming. You cannot be surprised by what this report has come out with. And this is about people who are, as of this moment, not safe in their own homes.
As the dust settled, Starmer scheduled follow-up interviews to clarify his party's policies and address concerns raised during the confrontation. However, the challenge remained. Could he recover from this setback and reshape the narrative surrounding his leadership? The Kuenssberg interview became a defining moment not just for Starmer.
But why has it taken this long even to have one step towards progress? You didn't have a national nursing dispute under the last Labour government.
So right now,
what you did have was
if you were
lower
Prime
waiting
Minister,
lists
you would keep negotiating.
And higher confidence in the NHS.
But you would keep negotiating, and the implication of that is that you would offer them more.
Well, Laura, look, the election will be sometime next year. We will inherit whatever situation we inherit.
But you want to be Prime Minister. But you want to be Prime Minister. It is exactly the kind of thing that might face you.
But for the Labour Party as a whole, marking a critical juncture in its quest to regain the trust and support of voters. With the next election looming, all eyes were on whether he could turn the tide and re-establish himself as a credible leader capable of challenging the status quo.
Doctors will not accept 6%. You say the government should keep negotiating. The implication of that is they should offer more than 6%.
No leader of the opposition is going to sit in a TV studio saying the precise percentage that they would agree in hypothetical discussions. I'm not even in the room for these negotiations. What I would do is approach this very, very differently in government. We would negotiate, but the most important thing is to get to the root cause. The root cause of this is the economic failure of the last 13 years. We've got to turn that around. Is going through the books, going through the buildings, identifying where work has been done, where work hasn't been done, who's responsible, and putting in a place to make sure that we can accelerate that as quickly as possible. That work is ongoing. You can't do that in opposition because you simply don't have access to the material, but we're on it, we're working at pace, and we will bring the same mindset to this as I brought to the disorder, which is get people around the table, make the ask of them, the requirement.
Well, with the disorder, you said you wanted everybody in court within a week. You know, you are the Prime Minister now. some people would want you to hear you say, you know what, in a year, everybody will be safe.
Today, Jesse Watters, Greg Gutfeld, and Kayleigh McEnany made a groundbreaking announcement on the Faulkner Focus, catching everyone off guard. The dynamic trio, known for their strong opinions and sharp analysis, revealed something that could shake up the political and media landscape. Harris Faulkner, always at the center of impactful discussions, facilitated the conversation with her trademark poise. As the news broke, the studio buzzed with excitement and anticipation, leaving viewers on the edge of their seats. What could this major announcement mean for the future of conservative commentary? Let's dive into the details of this unexpected revelation.
Questions. It's highly dangerous for Peter Doocy to ask questions.
Wow.
Putting aside the ethics here, it's fine if she wants to engage in political rhetoric. Just go do it at the campaign and don't use your White House title and don't stand behind that White House podium. This is 48 hours after the second assassination attempt on Donald Trump. And all of a sudden the rules go out the window. You're going to double down on this rhetoric? 48 hours.
Well, it's really, really, really unfortunate that she could not see that question coming. I mean, a child could have told you that after a former president was nearly killed a second time, you might want to be ready for the question of how many times does it take before you make sure that you've got the protection around him per the White House that looks like a president currently, because that's what it's going to take. You'd think she'd be ready for that. I immediately got on X and said, there's never a hatchack around when you need.
Jesse Watters, Greg Gutfeld, and Kayleigh McEnany each play distinct roles in shaping political discussions on Fox News, reflecting their unique personalities and viewpoints.
Now, despite the second attempt on Trump's life, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre doubled down on referring to Trump as a threat.
Jesse Watters, known for his sharp wit and straightforward delivery, often focuses on critiquing mainstream media narratives and highlighting issues he believes are being ignored or misrepresented. He plays the role of the provocateur, challenging the status quo and offering a voice to conservative frustrations with the current political climate.
How are we supposed to trust the Secret Service to investigate themselves if they won't even tell us who they're investigating? Thankfully, whistleblowers are leaking. The New York Times is reporting the lead agent in charge of security at the Butler rally is Meredith Bank.
Here's a tip, lady. Never interview a guy with a beer in one hand and a Solo cup in the other.
The lane she was dangerously weaving and bobbing and going into, and that's where she didn't want to go, but she couldn't help herself because the answer to the question was she doesn't want to stop saying he's not a threat.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to stop saying he's a threat, rather, because that's how Democrats see it, a threat to democracy. It's their talking point. And they haven't thought it through. Well, could that be part of the problem of why he's in danger? If they have thought it through, then they're complicit. And if they haven't, they're really naive. So Peter calls her out on it. She's upset, calls him dangerous for the question. I call her dangerous for the answer. Stop calling Donald Trump a threat. I mean, people have tried to kill him more than once now.
Yeah, exactly. And it's dangerous for Peter to ask a question of the federal government. You can't do that. It's also dangerous for J.D. Vance to question the media.
Whether he's talking about economic policies, immigration, or cultural issues, Watters frames his arguments around what he sees as the disconnect between the political elite and ordinary Americans. He frequently emphasizes accountability and transparency in government, pushing back against what he perceives as hypocrisy and corruption within political circles.
Primetime looked all over the internet. New York Times is reporting the lead agent in charge of security at the Butler rally is Meredith Bank. Primetime looked all over the internet for information about Meredith Bank. No photos, no bio, it's all gone. Now, we don't know how qualified Agent Bank is. Was she one of the female agents that former director Kimberly Cheadle was promoting with her DEI agenda? We don't know. Was she one of the female agents that was promoted even after failing tests? We don't know. But Butler was a test, and she failed it.
It never goes well. You know, this guy served his country and worked hard all his life. No wonder CNN sees him as the problem.
You know, for those who didn't see, Carly, J.D. Vance brought constituent complaints to his interview. She can fact check them, fine. That's what the media can do. But then he questioned Dana Bash, giving multiple choice questions to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, contrasting it with his interview where he was constantly interrupted. And it's not dangerous for him to question the media.
Greg Gutfeld brings a more satirical and irreverent tone to political commentary. As a co-host on The Five and host of his own late-night show, he blends humor with critique, often mocking both political figures and the media. Gutfeld's role is to provide a comedic yet insightful perspective, using humor to disarm and engage his audience. He often tackles the absurdities of political discourse, pointing out contradictions and the often performative nature of modern politics.
But the ignorant left always forgets that there's a long time between the economy starting to suck and everyone being poor. And the CNN bosses will surely fire that reporter long before they have to sell their own boats. Now, the reporter should have said, you know what, sir, I'm out of my depth here. Thank you for your time. I'm going to go home. Instead, she persisted.
A local SWAT team commander says there was really no direction for Miss Meredith Bank. Secret Service asked for 2 snipers, but never told Butler officials where they wanted them posted. So when locals said, hey, Agent Bank, there's a roof with a direct line of sight to the stage, should someone cover that? Bank passed the buck, said some other unit probably has it covered. This jives with what whistleblowers told Senator Hawley.
Which she doesn't understand. So let's review. According to this genius from CNN, as long as you have money, you shouldn't worry about people who don't. Got it? In other words, he's capable of thinking about somebody else besides himself, unlike that reporter.
His commentary tends to focus on freedom of speech, cancel culture, and what he sees as the encroachment of political correctness on personal liberties. Gutfeld's style is more relaxed and conversational, aiming to make serious topics more accessible and entertaining without losing the substance of his arguments. Kayleigh McEnany, on the other hand, brings a more structured and formal approach to her political analysis.
A major blow for the Harris campaign today after the Manhattan judge in Trump's hush money case delayed sentencing until after the election.
Liberal media pundits quickly claimed that Vice President Kamala Harris won Tuesday's debate. But it seemed undecided voters are not so sure. The New York Times reporting this. Voters said the vice president talked about a sweeping vision to fix the country's most stubborn problems, but they wanted the fine print.
Harris was hoping for Trump to hit that legal pothole in October. And now, legally, Trump has a clear road ahead. Reality is setting in. And Obama world is telling Democrats not to get your hopes up. They say it's very possible that if the election were held today, Trump would win. That's what we've been telling you. Democrat numbers guru Nate Silver says stop ignoring the elephant in the room. Quote, the Electoral College is starting to look like a challenge for Kamala. After a slew of what Silver calls mediocre polls for Harris, he's forecasting Trump winning every single battleground by 1 to 4 points. Silver gives Trump a 62% chance of winning. And the Clintons are sharpening their knives.
As a former White House press secretary under the Trump administration, she draws on her experience to provide insider perspectives on political strategy and media relations. McEnany often defends conservative policies and leaders, particularly those of Donald Trump, while also critiquing what she sees as unfair media bias and misinformation.
That felt really good. Happy Tuesday, everyone. So in Monday's TV address, President Biden appeared to have a spray tan. Aides say he tried using a tanning bed, but when they closed the lid, Dr. Jill kept throwing dirt and flowers on top.
And it was not just the New York Times that found that the debate was not a slam dunk for Harris. Reuters interviewed 10 people who were still unsure how they were going to vote in the November 5th election before they watched the debate. 6, that's about 60%, said afterwards that they would now neither vote for Trump or they were leaning toward backing him. 3 said they would now back Harris, and 1 was still unsure how he would vote.
Even Biden's going to watch Tuesday's debate with low expectations. His team thinks Kamala's public performances are uneven and often not reassuring. They worry she struggles under the glare of national pressure. They find her risk-averse to the point of paralysis.
When media brought up Biden's freshly darkened complexion, Democrat leaders replied that it's all part of their plan to gradually replace him with a person of color.
Her role is that of the defender and strategist, using her knowledge of political communication to articulate and advocate for conservative viewpoints. She often highlights what she believes to be the successes of the Trump administration and contrasts them with current policies, aiming to demonstrate the effectiveness of conservative governance. Together, these three personalities create a dynamic and multifaceted commentary on Fox News.
A major blow for the Harris campaign today after the Manhattan judge in Trump's hush money case delayed sentencing until after the election.
Liberal media pundits quickly claimed that Vice President Kamala Harris won Tuesday's debate. But it seemed undecided voters are not so sure. The New York Times reporting this. Voters said the vice president talked about a sweeping vision to fix the country's most stubborn problems, but they wanted the fine print.
Harris was hoping for Trump to hit that legal pothole in October. And now, legally, Trump has a clear road ahead. Reality is setting in. And Obama world is telling Democrats not to get your hopes up. They say it's very possible that if the election were held today, Trump would win. That's what we've been telling you. Democrat numbers guru Nate Silver says stop ignoring the elephant in the room. Quote, the Electoral College is starting to look like a challenge for Kamala. After a slew of what Silver calls mediocre polls for Harris, he's forecasting Trump winning every single battleground by 1 to 4 points. Silver gives Trump a 62% chance of winning. And the Clintons are sharpening their knives.
That felt really good. Happy Tuesday, everyone. So in Monday's TV address, President Biden appeared to have a spray tan. Aides say he tried using a tanning bed, but when they closed the lid, Dr. Jill kept throwing dirt and flowers on top.
And it was not just the New York Times that found that the debate was not a slam dunk for Harris. Reuters interviewed 10 people who were still unsure how they were going to vote in the November 5th election before they watched the debate. 6, that's about 60%, said afterwards that they would now neither vote for Trump or they were leaning toward backing him. 3 said they would now back Harris, and 1 was still unsure how he would vote.
Even Biden's going to watch Tuesday's debate with low expectations. His team thinks Kamala's public performances are uneven and often not reassuring. They worry she struggles under the glare of national pressure. They find her risk-averse to the point of paralysis.
When media brought up Biden's freshly darkened complexion, Democrat leaders replied that it's all part of their plan to gradually replace him with a person of color.
So this is all interesting. I mean, Reuters, 60% of undecided voters now leaning toward Trump after that. Different than what you'd hear from Gemma Costa and the like. Tammy, I want to bring in the voice of a voter in the New York Times. Her name is Keir Miller. She's a 34-year-old black woman. This was buried at the end of the New York Times piece, unsurprisingly so. Here's what she said. On Tuesday, she felt unexpectedly nudged toward Trump. Trump's pitch was a little more convincing than hers. Miss Miller said, I guess I'm leaning more on his facts than her vision. What a line. Miss Miller said that while her heart pulls for Harris's potentially history-making candidacy, she finds herself thinking fondly of her old life, quote, when Trump was in office. Not going to lie, I was living way better. I've never been so down as in the past 4 years. It has been so hard for me. I think a lot of people saw what Keila saw.
U.S. military bases in Europe are on high alert because of intelligence about a possible terror attack. When reached for comment, Joe Biden said someone should tell the president.
Yes, that's right. You know, and Harris, there's this really big, huge chasm. And I saw it during my time at CNN in 2016, no less, where footnote, Trump went on to win that election, between the punditry in the Ivy Towers and what people are saying in the heartland. We saw it on your panel yesterday with independents and Republicans aligned.
So if Kamala Harris chokes under pressure and freezes with indecision, shouldn't they be warming her up with interviews instead of throwing her into the biggest debate of her life cold?
The Biden campaign sent out an email accusing his critics of being a bunch of bedwetters. Ironic. Well, isn't that the bedpan calling the kettle wet?
Not witness protection. But she's strapped to a podium inside debate camp, surrounded by counselors, torturing her with back-to-back 90-minute mock debate sessions. No naps, no breaks. And it's not going well. People are leaking. And now Democrats expect Trump to have a great night.
Talk about projection. What's next? Calling Biden critics walking corpses who their pants in front of the Pope and won't acknowledge their grandchildren? Aw, a little... Ooh, did I hurt somebody's feelings? You know where the exit is.
So Jason Henderson, also, sorry, Jason, you were buried at the bottom of the New York Times. He was an undecided voter in Arizona. He was going to sit this election out. And on the issue of Trump temperament, for the pundits saying, oh, he was so angry, et cetera, et cetera. Well, here's what Jason had to say. Like Miss Miller, he came away from the debate leaning tenuously toward the Republican nominee. Mr. Henderson, who voted for Barack Obama, then for Trump, allowed that Mr. Trump came off as crazy, he said, but he was no different from his appearances at rallies and in interviews. And as he watched post-debate commentary on cable news, Mr. Henderson said he bristled at the pundits who widely panned Mr. Trump's performance. Had they watched the same debate, he wondered.
So what's going on behind the scenes at debate camp, I wonder? Well, her Frankenstein campaign still isn't sure where she stands on anything. And an insider says prepping Kamala is frustrating. Because while they're trying to train her on how to deliver a good, punchy soundbite, she actually wants a thorough understanding of every issue that could possibly come up.
Democratic strategist James Carville doubled down on his warning that the Democratic Party's messaging is too feminine, though many observers would disagree.
Well, that is such a good point. You know, they saw someone who was a fighter on that stage. I don't think you could deny Trump fought on the stage. Maybe they saw someone who's going to fight Xi. Yeah, someone who's going to fight Putin, someone who's going to fight for my grocery prices, Emily.
And Watergate legend Carl Bernstein says there's been a cover-up of Joe Biden's mental decline. And, like 50 years ago, he relied on an insider codenamed Deep Throat.
Yep, and it would have been nice if the ABC presidential debate would have given us more of that. It was more appropriately the DNC debate. Presidential debate between former President Trump and Vice President Harris. The debate sparking intense backlash over how the moderators appeared to team up with Harris to take on Trump. There was not, listen to this, a single fact check for Kamala Harris.
Basically, Kamala is still trying to learn what her policies are. And her team's like, Madam Vice President, it's a little too late for that. Let's not talk about the policies. That's not going to help. Here's a few zingers. Just memorize them. If you start debating policy, you're going to lose.
So we live in an incredible moment. It's not often we get to see a massive hoax exposed before us and the world. That sort of thing, when those in power are shown as evil liars, that only happens in movies. And, well, just every Scooby-Doo episode ever made.
All as the ABC moderators targeted Trump with tougher questions, more follow-ups, and nonstop corrections, challenging him in real time on his statements from abortion to crime.
It's a perfect metaphor for this Biden mess, where we're told the villain is one thing, but it always turns out to be something else. Consider yesterday's Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity. In the dissent, Sotomayor hilariously frets about how far Trump would take it. She writes, quote, he now will be insulated from criminal prosecution. Orders the Navy SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival, immune. Organizes a military coup to hold on to power, immune. Takes a bribe in exchange for a pardon, immune, 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 immune. But that's all BS, and it's scary coming from a Supreme Court justice, some wise Latina. She makes AOC seem like FDR. Everything she suggests the president would face impeachment for, and then a trial. But surprise, the media played along.
So, you know, last night ABC had a choice. They could be credible, solid, probing, fair debate moderators, or they could be partisan activists. And they chose the latter. And I sat there watching this debate wondering, you know, where's the question about the tie-breaking vote for Kamala on inflation, on the American Rescue Plan?
Luckily, she only works Mondays and has 6 days to calm down. But the libs once again rely on extreme fantasy. The president can use SEAL Team 6 to take out critics? Well, if he uses it on The View, they'd be called Meal Team 6.
And how does Kamala not have a thorough understanding of the issues by now? The only issues that are going to come up are going to be the economy, the border, abortion, and wars. This isn't Jeopardy. Moderators aren't going to ask her about 18th century European literature. Debate prep should be as easy as going on The View.
How would Trump take out Biden? Make him climb stairs? Would he slip poison into Pelosi's Botox? Switch out Jerry Nadler's Depends with a suicide diaper? In a perfect act of karma, he could tie Mitt Romney to the roof of the presidential limo. Or maybe Trump could prosecute his political enemies on charges nobody can even explain. That'd be new, right?
She didn't reach those levels by herself. I mean, she lucked out. All of these leaks about Kamala over-preparing, translation. She's underprepared, and she's just trying to cram it all in at the last second. The only card Kamala can play is the excuse me moment with the finger snap. Is Trump going to take the bait?
I sat there thinking to myself, where's the question about taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries from illegal immigrants? It didn't exist. I sat there, and we have a visual aid for this one. Where's the question about her running mate, babies born alive after abortions being left to die before changing the reporting requirements? And where, we'll scroll this as well, where are the questions about every single one of these policies, Harris, these radical policies? I believe one or two were mentioned casually. None of Harris's past policies mentioned.
But this decision is easily explained. On one hand, if the president has no immunity for official actions, we end up with a leader weighing options on whether he'll have to defend them in court someday. He'll be more gun-shy than Alec Baldwin's assistant.
We've covered Trump for almost 10 years. The only thing that's going to put him on the defensive is if you say he went bankrupt or he's a bad golfer. You can say anything else about the guy, and they have, and he just shakes it off. But he can't spend the entire time defensive. He needs on Tuesday to have her on the defensive the whole night. He needs to methodically define her with repetition. He's good at that until it sinks into the voters' brains. The Clintons, who debated Trump, know what to expect.
But do we want a president who's immune from all prosecution? That's all this was, a guide on the limits of presidential power. But how do you expect a man with one foot in his mouth and the other in the grave to understand that? Shut up. Nobody is listening. We're just waiting to see if you don't keel over. Now, if this ruling actually meant Trump could do whatever he wants, wouldn't that apply to the sitting president? And I say sitting because standing is a lot to ask of Joe these days.
It's the one line Kamala can remember. Now she's a populist.
We know what we stand for, and we stand for the people.
As soon as Trump hears that, he should just turn to her and say, yeah, you're for the people, all right. The people of Mexico, the people of Venezuela, the people all over the world who you let into this country. You're not for the American people.
Yeah, follow-ups. Some were necessary. In fact, we put together the tall tales of Kamala Harris for you. Let's take a listen to it.
Chewing is asking a lot of him these days. It's not like Biden or whoever's running the show wouldn't use these newfound powers. This is the White House that brought 4 Trump criminal cases, along with an unelected defense attorney who chases Trump the way Anna Navarro trails the hot dog vendors of 6th Avenue.
The only people you're for are the rioters you bailed out, the IRS agents you hired to make our lives miserable. That's not the people. I put the American people first. I created jobs for the American people, not people from other countries like you did.
If Biden handlers thought they could drone the RNC, Biden's teleprompter would read, ready, aim, fire. And Biden would say, ready, aim, fire, end of quote.
I spend time with Gold Star families, the ones you've never called, with angel moms, the ones you've never called. I'm for the people in our police departments, the ones you wanted defunded. The people who want lower prices and safer streets, you're not for those people. You had your chance and you blew it. Where have you been?
And dangerous plan called Project 2025. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. If Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban.
But why is every Supreme Court decision or every word spoken by Trump causing a meltdown usually seen in Jesse's dressing room when he runs out of Aquanet? Well, this is what happens when you see everything through the prism of one man. When one human being becomes the embodiment of all the shortcomings and fears in your life. I swear, I haven't seen one guy cause this much hysteria since I did my last book tour shirtless. So is this the end of the world? Well, if you're one of the media or enablers who's been hiding the nation's most eminent dementia patient, the answer is yes, it is. You've been exposed. Like me when I forget to wear pants under my chaps.
You don't have time to think about why no one likes you? You just lost $20,000 of purchasing power. You lost your job doing illegal, and you can't buy a house because rates are too high. And what does the Kamala Harris campaign say? Certain things may have happened or may not have happened, but we don't have time to think about that. They don't care about you. They just care about winning. You can lose, but if they win, that's all that matters to them. Kamala had 4 years to be there for the people. She never showed up. The people are asking her, where are you?
So you just heard Charlottesville and bloodbath. You would think David Muir, Lindsay Davis, hopped up on some fact-checking caffeine, would have brought this up. Left-wing Snopes fact-check. We believe in facts here, so let's actually bring up the facts they failed to. Marie, Snopes, no, Trump did not call neo-Nazis and white supremacists very fine people. We'll bring up PolitiFact after that. Joe Biden claimed Trump said there would be a bloodbath if he is not elected. Trump was discussing the auto industry.
So once again, the left tries to divert us from that other story, the one about us not having a president. Look over here, ignore that vegetable. But there's a contradiction. First, if Trump's so evil, why do you have to make up these crimes? And if defeating Trump is so vital to saving the world, then why are you clowns running a glazed donut against him?
One candidate's hiding from the people. The other candidate this week did a town hall, held a presser, did an hour podcast, spoke to business leaders, and today spoke with police officers.
David Muir just exposed a critical detail that everyone else missed during the debate, and it's causing quite a stir. Known for his sharp journalism and keen eye for the truth, Muir's latest revelation has shed new light on a key moment that went unnoticed by many. His insight is sparking widespread discussion, as people are now questioning what really happened during the debate. Muir's findings could change the narrative entirely, and the fallout from this exposure is bound to make waves.
ABC is a disgrace. I think having Donna Brazile sitting on that panel, and she's the one that gave the answers and the questions to Hillary Clinton before a debate. I think ABC should be shut out.
The hypothetical debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump would undoubtedly be a high-stakes and highly anticipated political event. Both figures are known for their strong personalities, sharp rhetoric, and ability to captivate audiences, making this matchup a potential flashpoint in the political landscape. Such a debate would be marked by stark contrasts in policy, leadership style, and vision for the future of the country. From the outset, the tension between the two would be palpable. Kamala Harris, as the vice president and former senator from California, brings a reputation for being a skilled prosecutor, someone who is well-versed in debate tactics and can easily dissect arguments with precision. Her calm demeanor, combined with her sharp questioning style, would be on full display as she addresses Trump's policies, character, and record during his presidency. Donald Trump, the former president and a master of commanding the stage, would come into the debate with his signature style, bold, direct, and often unpredictable. Trump has always thrived in environments where he can energize his base by delivering fiery lines and pushing back aggressively against his opponents. His approach is often less about specifics and more about creating memorable moments, appealing to emotions and framing the debate in terms of his vision of strength and leadership. The opening moments of the debate would likely see each candidate laying out their vision for America. Harris would emphasize the successes of the Biden administration, particularly focusing on issues such as pandemic recovery, infrastructure investment, and the administration's efforts to restore global alliances. She would stress the importance of steady leadership, unity, and policies aimed at lifting up working families with a particular focus on healthcare, education, and climate change. Trump, on the other hand, would likely frame the debate around the idea of America first. He would critique the Biden administration for what he views as failures in economic policy, energy independence, and foreign affairs. Trump would argue that his presidency saw the strongest economy in recent memory before the COVID-19 pandemic, and would highlight his administration's efforts to deregulate industries, reduce taxes, and confront China. He would likely contrast his leadership style as strong and decisive compared to what he would frame as a weak and ineffective administration under Biden and Harris. One of the central flashpoints of the debate would almost certainly revolve around the economy. Harris would likely point to the Biden administration's efforts to pass major legislation aimed at revitalizing the economy after the pandemic, including relief packages and infrastructure spending that she claims have created jobs and rebuilt critical sectors. She would also likely focus on her work to promote equity in economic recovery, emphasizing how the administration has sought to help communities that have historically been left behind. Trump would respond by arguing that the economy under his administration was booming before the pandemic,